is just fantastic.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about a streamer called Meat Canyon, I think. Yes, because they have some perspectives that come from what has been dubbed by many to be a place of lacking of understanding. Yeah, I thought we'd go through that, and then a consequence they received, which has been reversed already. Yeah, I figured we'd do something a little different people-wise because it offers an opportunity for us to talk about those who are not as informed as they should be, trying to take a middle-of-the-road stance when something is not as grey as others would like to think it is. And this is not a dig at Meat Canyon, or any creator that does that, but when an issue is not grey, you don't need to make it grey so you can create a third option in a discussion that is very much one way or the other, quite frankly. The fork doesn't have to have 4 separate directions. That metaphor made no sense. People know what I mean, right? So Yeet on Twitter had tweeted, Meat Canyon shares his opinion on Ethan Klein and how he handles the drama surrounding him. Basically thinks he can never admit when he's wrong. Everybody's against me, that's the biggest problem with all of these people. Replies underneath because it's always worth adding additional context. Origami, I don't know how connect or correct Papa Meat is to the drama discourse. I really like the guy and his work, but I think there are more underlying problems than just that. Example, Ethan shouldn't have moved to such a hardcore audience. I think it's moved to such a hardcore left-leaning audience and went half on a podcast with one of the most radical leftists alive, in knowing some of the crazy stuff Hassan did. However, he's free to do so, but cannot be blindsided with how the left or whomever is to treat people breaking away from the group thing. And Nick Diorio, quote, he can never admit when he's wrong. Ethan is the only person in this entire situation who is willing to admit when he or Healer has been wrong. Everyone else has been sides cut and unable to concede on the most obvious points. I've often said there are many types of creator, but one very prevailing theme is the inability to shelve your pride or your ego long enough to introspect and accept where you might not be as correct as you think you are. Because if you can't see it, then you're creating your own forest through the trees and all that bollocks. So to the clip.
In ways I feel bad for Ethan, or I feel for him. I don't feel bad for him. I feel for Ethan in the fact that if you're a Jewish guy, your wife is from Israel, and you have, I don't know, you have all you believe in your mind, like you're a Jewish person that is seeing these things and, you know, all these different, it's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to say it, like,
I'm not going to sit here and throw shade at Meat Canyon in the slightest. I am, however, going to say, if you are not as informed on something, or you clearly look like someone who does not, because of how you're arguing, you don't come across as someone that watches this content, perhaps you shouldn't be speaking on it. It's always good to get the context and invest your time to make sure that your opinions and perspectives are informed. I also understand that when you're a streamer full-time, perhaps, you want to be as active as possible, so a lot of your opinions are raw as opposed to being informed. But on an issue like this, being informed is advantageous, as it reduces the opportunity for others to go in on you. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with not wanting to take a side, sometimes sides have to be, even to those who don't think they should.
You feel personally connected to this, obviously, because it's your religion and all this kind of stuff. The problem is, he can never say that he's wrong about anything. That's the biggest problem with all of these people. Nobody can just be like, yeah, I don't know.
This is where I know you may not have watched the debate with Hassan, because during the debate, if you had watched it, there were points that Ethan was willing to concede on, points that didn't matter, maybe larger points that did matter to Hassan. At no point did Hassan concede the points, even when he was completely wrong. And that is a massive point. When you know you're wrong and you're not willing to admit it, you look like you're intellectually dishonest. You also look like you have no integrity, because you're too busy obsessing over dignity and your franchise, your brand. The unforgiving, unrelenting Hassan Piker, who's just bored emoji all day, every day. Ethan does actually concede points, and does know when to back off, compared to Hassan anyway, and certainly compared to iDubbbz as well, because at this point he has no reason to back off, nor should he, quite frankly, because iDubbbz has no integrity.
It is f***ed up. This is f***ed up. I shouldn't be overreacting to this. I feel like if he seriously would have been like, I believe this way, I believe this way, and I did overreact. I'm being a bit I'm overreacting to this right now, I really do think that people would have a different opinion.
Yet, in the grand scope of things, is that possible? The answer is no. We can all sit here and look down upon those that do these kind of debates, but we're not the ones in them, and there's a reason they're the ones that do them. I understand wanting to seem removed from it, but if you want to offer commentary on a commentary problem, at least have a bit of a backbone, yeah, rather than trying to play the middle of the road. Because playing middle of the road in this particular instance is redundant, especially if you then want to use it to make a grander point, which your grander point is about ego, essentially.
But it can never be that, though, is it? Because everybody else is stupid. Everybody's against me. The chat and the communities are just as worse, man, if not worse. I'd probably say that the communities are worse.
Okay, so in this we might have some agreement. There are some that are absolutely devout in who they back. There are 100% people like that. It is not something I like to promote. I think it's okay to have a differing opinion. I think it's important to look at the evidence for yourself and come to your own conclusion. I have presented as much as I can, and I believe in, for example, the instance of Ethan and Hassan, Ethan is on the right side. I really do think that. And I think iDubbbz needs to know his role and shut his mouth. He is at best a glorified punchbag for people and, more importantly, his wife. And much like Hassan, has no real opinion unless it's given to him by his wife, or in Hassan's case, his chat.
The communities are way more like, they're just so like, it's like all of them feel like they have like a Excalibur sword in their hand, and that they have to go into any kind of like comment section or conversation just swinging immediately.
I have noticed since Hassan's more recent ban for one day, more and more people are calling on Twitch to ban political discourse as a topic on the platform. Now, I don't believe that that is the right way to go about it. I do think there needs to be certain regulations for promoting extremism, but then how do you do that, and how is anyone going to judge that? That is the problem. Hassan has actively promoted extremism, and if you tell anyone that on Twitch, you get banned for it. Consider that foreshadowing for Meat Canyon. Twitch is a very left-leaning platform. It's unlikely to change anytime soon. Many of us, myself included, use it for gaming. Only gaming. Whenever political discussion comes up on my side, I refuse to acknowledge it. We just talk. That's all we do. It's a much healthier way of going about things. But there are many who started off healthier, like Hassan in fact, and as more and more time went by, the poison just crept in and just ruined that person. That's not to say Ethan is truly innocent, because there have been ups and downs as a podcaster. Just pointing out for Twitch's side, because that's more important in this particular discussion, that the audience plays a key role in that. But the streamer is hardly free from blame, because they grow that audience themselves.
That's what it feels like every time. Just on trying to work it out with him, though. You know, that's fair. It's one of those things, too, where, I don't know. In my opinion, the best way to ever help anybody is to not... Really, the best thing you can do to help anybody online, don't even interact with them. Don't interact with them. Don't even acknowledge it. Even with all the people being like,
oh my god! Did you see what he said here? Did you see what he said here? Did you see what he said here? Did you see what he said here?
Not gonna lie, these comments could apply to the likes of Foodie Beauty quite handily. I did a video on her yesterday, and already she's managed to cause controversy with a kitten. As an overall point, annoyingly, to impact change, streamers who are too full of themselves, the best thing you can do is not interact with them, because they're never going to listen to criticism, and we know this from Hassan especially because whenever he gets criticism, he highlights the message on his stream, and then he talks down to you for 10 minutes in his bored, monotonous drone, spoken unironically from a guy who's been accused of having an AI voice. Thank you, by the way, for many persons over the years that have said that. I'm sure that's totally a compliment. My voice will one day be replaced by Grok, Siri, or Alexa, or whatever they're called. Now that video was retweeted via Yeet by Willie Mack, who had said, all these creators chime in on this drama without knowing anything. Ethan seems to always be willing to correct the record, meanwhile everyone else just doubles down and lies. Has Meat Canyon watched anything outside of clipped TikToks? Replies, in all fairness, this clip is cut a little out of context. So Willie Mack decided to include the context by saying, here is the full segment from Meat Canyon's stream. To me, it's very clear that he hasn't just watched anything yet is pushing the narrative that Ethan is just insane and can't admit he's wrong. I guess this is proof that the Hassan slander campaign has worked to some degree. Reply from the same person he had replied to previously, yeah, he definitely didn't talk like he knew anything about the entire situation. bro talking about Ethan while clearly defining Hassan, defending I assume. Papa Goat covered it first thing on his stream today. Willie Mack retweeted this later by saying, Meat Canyon sees CPS getting falsely called on Ethan's family. Meat Canyon sees skulls being mailed as a unalive threat to Ethan's house. Meat Canyon sees some of the biggest voices online justify both of these things happening. Meat Canyon sees Ethan's employees being labelled as Uncle Toms. Meat Canyon, quote, I think both sides aren't great and are doing some whoopsie daisies. WTF. Further saying, a lot of heat towards Meat Canyon, I'm just teasing him for clearly not knowing the extent of the drama. A lot of streamers chime in on drama they know nothing about. It's the medium, it's not the end of the world. But when you get made fun of for it, it's on you. And I agree with this. I have no ill will towards Meat Canyon as a streamer, in the slightest. But if you're going to speak on something, you need to be informed. I've been accused back when I started. I used to be very middle of the road. And then as time went by, I made it a point to make sure I had enough sources to be able to form a coherent perspective. And there are certain lines in the sand I refuse to move on. Something as simple, for example, as acknowledging the artists that make your videos possible if you use art. If you don't acknowledge them in the description to your videos, and then I find out you've been really nasty to an artist or your artist, yeah, I'm coming for you. Hi, Just a Robot. I've still got those DMs, by the way. You're a dick. So with all that in mind, we should probably address the fact that recently, for reasons I can't find on the internet, Meat Canyon was banned on Twitch a day or two ago. I don't fully understand why, but it had been speculated by a number of Twitter users that it's because he hadn't sucked on Hassan hard enough, and that perhaps he'd offered some criticism his way. If possible, or if true, I can understand why Twitch would do it then, because they must protect those they dub the golden gooses, or geese, the plural, especially when the singular, Hassan, is a protected class on the platform, as are most of the super left-leaning, tolerant left extremists that get banned for one day and don't lose monetization, yet those that criticize them lose monetization for a time and get banned. In the case of Meat Canyon, though, he was unbanned after one day, well, less actually, technically. It was 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 24 seconds, according to streamer bans. I know that he is accused of not being as informed on topics he covers and that writers feed him the information. And based on his conversations, his commentary with Ethan and Hassan, there's a point on that individual issue, but I wouldn't ban him over that. Some of his cartoons are highly amusing, by the way. Highly recommend people watch them, because guy's got skills. So yes, I have actually bothered to watch your content. The clips doing their rounds of your perspective concerning Ethan, though, intrigued me enough to have a little look. Anyway, as we are done here, I'd love to know what all of you think. Please do let me know in the comments down below. I shall be streaming on Twitch tonight some Star Trucker, and there's also a stream planned for Moistski Live afterwards on Foodie Beauty. After yesterday's video did oh so well, I'm slightly dreading the complete end-of-year edition of her 2024 going out on Sunday, considering how long it is. But never mind. Hope to see you on Twitch and on Moistski Live, of course. If not, have a wonderful day, and thank you all very much for listening.